United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees says he's worried that the war in Ukraine has been forgotten as the country prepares to mark 2 years since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. Today, Moscow accused Kyiv of shooting down a Russian military transport plane that crashed in a border region near Ukraine. Russia says 74 people on board were killed, including 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war. Manisa Danabalan joins us with more on this. Manisa.
Nicole, Ukraine's military intelligence said a prisoner exchange was supposed to happen today, but it didn't. Both Ukraine and Russia blaming each other for the deadly crash. Video of Wednesday's crash on social media from the Belgorod region of Russia showed a plane falling in a snowy rural area and a ball of fire erupting on the ground. Russia says there were no survivors after the crash and that the plane was carrying 6 crew members, 3 servicemen, and 65 Ukrainian prisoners of war. Moscow blames Kyiv for the crash.
Поражение самолета осуществлено вооруженными силами Украины из района населенного пункта Липцы Харьковской области с применением зенитно-ракетного комплекса. Радиолокационными средствами ВКС России наблюдался пуск 2 украинских ракет.
In a statement on its website, Ukraine's military intelligence said Kyiv wasn't asked to ensure airspace was secure around the Belgorod area, like it was in the past when prisoners of war were traded with Russia. Ukraine added that this could have been planned by Russia to, quote, destabilize the situation in Ukraine and weaken international support for our state.
Well, we don't know with any certainty what the plane was actually carrying. I mean, the Russians are claiming there were POWs on it. The Ukrainians are claiming it was carrying anti-aircraft missiles. It could conceivably have been carrying both.
Yesterday, 18 people were killed and more than 130 were injured in Ukraine after Russia struck the country's biggest cities with missiles. Earlier this week, Russia's foreign minister clashed with the U.S. and Ukraine supporters at a UN meeting, where Moscow ruled out any peace plan backed by Kyiv and the West, saying it's a road that leads nowhere. The United Nations' refugee chief expressed concern today that discussion over the issue of humanitarian aid to Ukraine had become held up by political wrangling.
Unser Gespräch heute werden wir auch nutzen, das nächste Treffen.
Today, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said the goal of a European Union special summit next week is to get all of its members to agree on financial aid for Ukraine. In December, EU leaders failed to agree on a 4-year, $52 billion package of assistance for the country. Hungary blocked the agreement, which requires unanimous support from all 27 EU members. In Washington, senators are trying for a bipartisan deal that would include nearly $61 billion in aid for Ukraine and changes to U.S. border policy. But Republicans are renewing a push to scale back the amount of assistance for Ukraine. And Canada's defense minister announced this week that the country will contribute another $35 million worth of military equipment to Ukraine as Russia's invasion edges toward the 2-year mark.
And the more that Putin is able to just keep throwing troops at Ukrainian targets, the more he's able to demonstrate both resolve to keep the fight up and a willingness to absorb casualties, the more traction the narrative gains in the West that this is sort of a futile struggle and that maybe Ukraine would be better advised to sue for peace and negotiate a settlement. Putin's actions strengthen the hands of those in the West who are reluctant to give more aid to Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying tonight that Russians are playing with the lives of Ukrainian prisoners and they have launched an investigation into the plane crash.